Edmund Duke donated $3.33. Where do you study tactics, boy?
Okay, so guys... Oh, wait, what happened to this webpage? Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, here. Let me just show you something real quick, okay? Now, you guys... There's this, second. Okay. So you guys, basically it's, people think that it's a meme what I talk about with Terran. Okay? People think it's a fucking meme. Okay, and then you're like, oh, you know, this isn't actually the way it is. It's just Artosis is salty. Okay, but how about, like, every Terran is in agreement on these points? I gotta show you this fucking thread that I found. Why does Flash play Terran? So I'm not sure if anyone is even on this forum anymore, but I was watching Artosis stream and he said Terran is the weakest, the hardest race. But if that's true, why does Flash play Terran? Why has he had more success with Terran than with the other races? The only thing I can think of is TVT is easier to be consistent than other mirrors. I honestly have no clue. Can someone who knows what they are talking about answer this question, please? So we asked for someone who knows what they're talking about to answer this question. It's a reasonable question, right? So basically, a bunch of people that have no idea and don't play the game, go ahead and answer this. But let's scroll down to Koget, who is one of the top foreign Terrans. Let's read what he has to say on the problem. And by the way, his Zerg is S rank as well, because he actually switched from Zerg to Terran. Okay, let's read it. The problem with Terran is that it is significantly more difficult on mechanics than any other race, and it takes thousands of hours to automize your habits before you can be really good. Flash has mastered Terran macro, and other things, to perfection. No one even comes close to his level. Then comes TVP, which in my view is often a game of Protoss mistake. E.g., if Protoss plays as well as Terran, they will win most of the time. As for TVT, I fully agree, it is the least random mirror of all, and is purely skill dependent. If you know what you are doing, then you will never lose to a weaker opponent, which is nice. As for argumenting my first point on Terran being significantly more difficult mechanically, think about these points. Supply depots need to be built one by one. They're big and hard to fit. They're also vulnerable, and they can burn down, making Terran super sensitive to them in all matchups. They take a lot of space, making the Terran base clunky and taking a lot of time. You need to babysit your SCVs while making any building, and even then, you will often end up with not building something. Placing turrets in Mineral Line is an extreme example of sometimes you need to spend 10 seconds just trying to build your turrets. Any other race builds any building instantly. Terran macro is most intensive. Building Marines / Vultures requires a crazy amount of APM as they build fast and are very cheap, so you will need to have more macro cycles. Compare P macro to T macro. Protoss orders 1 Zealot each, 25 seconds, spending 100 minerals. Terran needs to order 2 Marines every 15 seconds, spending 100 minerals. Similar Dragoon and Vulture. That is almost double the effort on macro. Zerg can build multiple units with one click and produces everything from one building, making it easier too. Every Terran unit has an activated ability, so it is not enough to just 1A, 2A, 3A your army and macro. You need to manually control your units' abilities most of the time. Individual Terran units are very weak versus both Z and P, and only grow in power in bigger groups and good positions. You need to constantly think about where you are on the map, high grounds, vision, etc., as otherwise you can lose in 1 second. Muta attacking from high ground, Protoss army catching you out of position, etc. With other races, if you are out of position, most of the time, you can just move back and avoid the fight, but not with Terran. Terran builds are very vulnerable to cheese. One wrong decision can mean GG.
Anonymous cheered.
You can do that later. 1 DT, Lurker instead of Muta, lack of a turret in a key position versus Muta, recall, etc. Now, all of the above can be handled, and Flash does it perfectly, and that is when Terran starts to shine and becomes so strong. But 99.9% of people cannot nail it and struggle with Terran and get frustrated. I recently switched to Zerg, and it blows my mind how big a skill gap I see when playing versus 1900 through 2000 MMR people facing my Zerg. As Terran, this is important, as Terran playing B rank Protoss, the game would still go at full length, 15 minutes plus. I could risk getting cheesed, maybe get a bad engagement, and play from behind to win in the long game. As Zerg, I make 6 mutas and realize that Terran at that level cannot even build turrets in time and lose to the first engagement. Protoss players lose to 6 lings, or just me making Hydra from 6 hatch. There are no mind games, no build order wins, just pure dominance based on mechanics, etc. As I was playing Terran, this didn't exist. Every game was difficult, and I could let my guard down even versus opponents that were 400 to 500 MMR lower than me. Let me read that sentence again. As I was playing Terran, this didn't exist. Every game was difficult, and I couldn't let my guard down, even versus opponents that were 400 to 500 MMR lower than me. To sum it up, it doesn't surprise me seeing 1900 through 2000 MMR Terrans looking like they are not doing anything and sitting in base. They just try to macro correctly, and they don't have more APM to use their army, as otherwise they float thousands and get supply blocked all the time. Okay, so that is Kogut, the highly respected #1 European Terran player who also plays other races, saying what he thinks about Terran. Notice some of these sentences, like the fact that even against 400 to 500 MMR lower, you still have to try your ass off with Terran. Every Terran that you actually speak to that's any good will basically say the same thing. So when people are like, oh, it's your fault that it took you that long to beat that Protoss. No, it's truly not. Yes, that guy was 400 MMR lower than me, and he still made me lift my third. I was never going to lose the game, but he killed all of my tanks except for like 1, and we had to really grind the game out, because this is actually what Terran is. So anyways, by the way, the rest of this thread is hilarious. It is a bunch of people that don't play the game and aren't good arguing with Kogut, which is fucking hilarious. All right, we'll let that.
What? Anonymous cheered. X300.
Thank you. Okay. So, I hope that you guys, I mean, there's a lot of jokes. Yeah, I'm pretty salty a lot of the time. But honestly, as soon as you talk to anyone else, like when Scan comes over, we talk to him, we ask him. I'm like, how do you kill Zerg when you're way ahead? He's like, you can't kill Zerg. Guys, this is all real, what I say.
Master _of_simp